Welcome to the Love Lounge podcast. This is not a place to learn, it's a place to land. Nothing here has to be earned, and nothing needs to be fixed. Love Lounge is an atmosphere, not a lesson. Here's your host, Laura Doughty.
There are moments in our lives that they don't feel like big, momentous things that are happening to us while they're happening. They don't come with the music or clarity or even certainty. They just feel uncomfortable, unsteady, a little bit like everything you knew has been taken away. And yet, those are the moments that bring us back to ourselves. This episode is not a lesson. It is a story about my first marathon and the version of me who didn't know yet what she was capable of. And because the Knicks have just won the NBA championships, yes, I just really felt like this was a perfect moment to share this first marathon story because of the level of belief and energy that is pulsing through not only the city of New York, but just anybody who has awake enough to know that what has happened with the Knicks. So for me in 2002, I left everything that I knew. I sold most of what I owned, packed up my life, put my car on a hauler, and I got on a plane with my Blue Point Siamese cat, little Sammy, and we flew 3,500 miles to Los Angeles. I had no job. I had no real plan. I had no safety net. I just knew that this was what I was supposed to do. And I can't fully explain that knowing, but if you've ever had it, you totally understand. It doesn't make sense in the moment, and it definitely didn't make sense to a lot of people around me. But it's one of those feelings that just will not leave you alone. And looking back now, this was the first run, not on pavement, but it was the first run away from the life that no longer fit me. A few months later, really basically it was April 2002, a new friend had asked me a question. Hey, I can remember where I was standing when she called me. Laura, do you want to run a marathon with me? Hold on. It's in Venice, Italy. Now, she knew how much I loved Italy. Little side note, I was married to an Italian for a while, but that's another story. But I remember thinking, Venice sounds beautiful, but a marathon? Are you freaking kidding me? My only experience of a marathon was my former boss at the Atlanta Apparel Mart coming back from running and finishing the Honolulu Marathon, and her knee was the size of a grapefruit. I mean, it was huge. It was insane. It was the grossest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, oh my God, a marathon. And that was the only image that I had of a marathon. But then she said something that just like stopped that awful thought. And it was, we would be running it for the Arthritis Foundation. So my grandmother, my dad's mother, died when I was, I think, barely 7 years old. And my great aunt, she might have been my cousin. It doesn't matter. She was like a grandmother to me. She replaced the love that I know that my real grandmother had for me. And she lived painfully with strength, with arthritis for all the life that I knew of her. So when she said Arthritis Foundation, I was like, okay, yes, because immediately I thought of Louise and I was in. And it wasn't because I felt ready, but it was because something in me said, this really matters. So I started training along the coast. At the time, when I had first moved to LA, I lived in Orange County, Los Alamitos to be specific. And so Seal Beach was where I started my training. And then I would go down to Huntington Beach and beyond. So it was, not bad. Nothing to complain about. But mile after mile, and here's the thing about running, you don't just build endurance, you start meeting parts of yourself you didn't know were there. I can still tell you where mile 10 and mile 15, like those places are marked in my body on that course between Seal Beach and Huntington. But sometimes things don't go always like you plan them. And 4 weeks before the marathon, I called my friend to check in, and she said, I'm not gonna be able to go. Yeah. And it was like everything after that moment went silent. Like I didn't hear why she couldn't go. I still don't even remember why she couldn't go. I just knew it was like that Charlie Brown sound. This was her. Wah, 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 wah. I'm like, oh, okay. What do I do? Because that's all I heard. I can't go. And then wah, 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 wah. I know, crazy. But then suddenly I had a decision to make. Do I stay? Because that's safe, that's comfortable, that's probably the right thing to do. I'm a single female going to an international country by myself. I mean, literally, I could hear my mom in the back of my mind. Or do I go to Italy by myself and run the race? And here is what I realized in that moment. I had already done something harder. I had already left my entire life behind to move to Los Angeles. So this was just another step. So I said, I'm going. Now, it was like planes, trains, and automobiles. It really was for me. I arrived in Venice completely out of my element. Now, I do have to tell y'all, and of course, here comes my accent. I was so disciplined, not only in my training for my marathon, I literally took a course at the community college to learn Italian. For those of you that can't see me, like I'm blushing because, but if you do want to see me, you just watch this podcast on YouTube. Side note. Anyway, I can remember sitting in that class with, it wasn't a large class, thank God. And here I am trying to learn Italian, which is one of the most difficult languages to learn, not only because of the accent that they use, but also the pronouns and how like everything changes with male and female. And I have my own Kentucky, a little dyslexia accent stuff that I have to deal with. So here I am. I get off the plane. I take the ferry to Venice. Again, completely out of my element. And then once I get to Venice, I have to get on another ferry to my hotel. Now, keep in mind, I'm lugging 2+ weeks worth of, running gear, other clothes, etc. All the while I'm trying to find all these places. Anyway, clearly that is an experience in and of itself. But once I got to my hotel, then I had to quickly get to the race expo to pick up my bib and, all the stuff that comes with running a race. So for those of you that don't know, sometimes like with the New York Marathon, they have like almost a week of an expo where you have plenty of time to pick up your bag, go to all the booths. It's amazing. But with Venice, they only had it open, I think, for 2 days or something like that. And the race, I had to be at the finish line, the start line at like 6 a.m. So you don't have time to go get your bib and register or, sign in. You're already registered, but on the day of the race. Anyway, so I leave my hotel. I get on a trolley. No one speaks any English, and they could not have been kinder, but they weren't going out of their way to help this country bumpkin. They just weren't. So I'm trying to figure out how do I, like, which thing do I get off? Long story short, I realized that I have gone, miles and miles out of my way. And I'm like, oh Jesus, what do I do? What do I do? So I'm like, okay, wait, we're not stupid. Let's get off and go back to where we started and try again. That's literally what I was telling myself. So I just breathed through it. And eventually I figured out where the expo was. I got my stuff. I was breathing. Let's all take a breath together because that was pretty stressful. So then came race day. Now, what I remember most was the people. This was my first race, and I chose it, one, because of arthritis, and then once I learned more about the race, I chose it, two, because it is a flat course. So I don't like hills. My legs don't like hills. So we were happy that this was a flat course. Having run as many races as I've run now, it didn't matter. This was my first race, and I can tell you to today, I mean, all of them are amazing, but the crowds that come to the side of the road in the little tiny little villages that you have to run through to get to San Marco, to the finish line. These people, the love, the smiles, the joy, the energy, it's just oozing out of them. There's just something about that Italian spirit, la dolce vita. You literally can feel it while you're running. By the way, if you're thinking about running, that one is one you should do. A lot of people don't talk about it. I don't know why, but it is amazing. And I think when I ran it, there were 8,000 people. And to give you a comparison, like there's 25,000 when I ran LA, and then there's 59,000 that run New York. So it is so like no pressure. Anyway, so then as you're running along and you start to get into Venice, then you hit the Basilica Santa Maria. And from that church thing, I'm not even sure if it's a church, but anyway, they build a floating bridge, literally a floating bridge, just for this marathon. Now, this bridge takes you from the Basilica to San Marco. It sounds magical, does it not? It sounds pretty like, what? They build a bridge, like a floating bridge over? I mean, it's wide. Go look it up on a map. But as magical as it sounds, when you are at, I think you're like around mile 20 or something like that, when you hit that, your legs are completely shot. And the bridge is rocking like this beneath you, not only because you're running across water, but because there are other people running beside you. So it's like, insane. So that is when I started walking. And then this is still, Lord, I'm going to tear up. No, I'm not. Get it together, Laura. This moment was when I felt a hand on the back of my arm. This arm, I can still feel his little hand. Andiamo, which means let's go. I looked over my shoulder, and it was an older gentleman telling me to run with the sweetest, softest smile. And I'm like, okay, got it. Yes, sir. And I picked up my pace. Now, here's the thing. Once you cross that rickety-rockety bridge, you've still got the up and down of the canals. Now, I found out later, because somebody took a picture of us, one of the marathon people took a picture of me and that man who had touched me and said, andiamo. I found out when I looked up his number that he was 74 years old. And that has stayed with me because that's what a real runner looks like. Not perfect, not fast, just committed. Now, I crossed the finish line, but there was literally no time to celebrate because I had to be checked out of my hotel. Again, remember, I'm here by myself. I happened to have a friend who was Italian who was in Italy visiting family, who came to see me for the race. And then I was going to go with him to his family's house after the race. So here I am, 26.2 miles, andiamo from the 74-year-old man. I get my medal. I race to my hotel, take a quick shower, finish packing up my stuff. Then we hightail it to catch a train. I think it's a 2-hour train that we took. And we traveled into Tuscany. Beautiful. Again, lugging my suitcase. The next morning, I wake up and everything is exactly like you would picture, like those painted pictures of Tuscany. I get up, I try to stretch, I get a little tea, a little crumpet, or what is crumpets, or you know what I'm saying, a biscotti. Okay, whatever. And I go to the veranda, and across like 180 degrees left to right is the most breathtaking Tuscan view. I'm sitting there taking in this amazing moment. Sorry. I hope you're sitting down for this one. And my friend comes up to me and says, there's been a change of plans. Okay. His family, I don't know. Whatever the miscommunication was, again, this was one of those Charlie Brown moments where he said, yeah, you've got to go. Like, apparently his family had promised the play. I don't know. Like, again, wah, 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 wah. Here I am, 26.2 miles. Ugh. I can still feel the pain of what I like. So I go back into my room, change my clothes, pack my bag, and I've got to go because he's got to leave to go to the train station to pick up the people that are coming to the house. And my only way from his little house back to the train station is with him. So I have no place to go. I am physically done, mentally and emotionally just spent. So by the time I get to the train station, I'm like, screw it. I'll just go to Rome because I actually, had planned to stay. Now I'm like 3 or 4 days ahead of my schedule now. And I had planned to stay in Rome. So I thought, I'll just bump up my time. And instead of staying at his place, I'll stay in Rome. I get to Rome. I get to the airport, and I'm telling you, I'm standing there trying to decide, do I stay? Do I rearrange my hotel, or do I just go home? We got to take a beat. And for the first time, I didn't overthink it. And maybe it was because of the hour. I already knew what my options were for the plane. I couldn't leave that day, but there was one leaving very early the next morning. So I said, screw it. It was so late. I literally put my bag up against a chair and I slept in the Rome airport. I got back to LA, picked up my sweet Sammy from the vet, and I just exhaled. And that's when it hit me. That experience, as messy and as imperfect as it was, it brought me back to me. Running didn't just take me to the finish line. It reminded me of who I was, who I am at my core. I didn't realize it, but somewhere along the way, I had lost myself. And this is just one of the stories I share in my upcoming book, Raised by Fire, because it was never just about the marathon. And it's why I started the Stoop Story series, because these miles, they forged something in me. And now as I prepare to run the 50th running of the New York Marathon, which will be the third time that I had the privilege of running through the 5 boroughs, over the 5 bridges. This time, every mile carries that history with it. This is my marathon mission. And if you feel called to be part of it, whether you want to sponsor a mile, whether you want to just shout me out, I don't care. Choose a story and simply follow along. You can find everything about my book, about the marathon mission, all at raisedbyfire.com. And if my stories don't tell you, if the Nick's journey hasn't told you, you can do hard things quietly, imperfectly, and without anyone watching. And sometimes those are the moments that matter the most. Thanks for sitting with me on this one. I wanted to share my first Stoop story, my first marathon on the Love Lounge podcast, because love comes in so many different forms. And I run because I love it. I run because I love myself. I run because I have the privilege of raising money for charities. And if I can inspire you at all to believe in yourself, then hopefully today's story has done that.
Thank you for allowing the Love Lounge podcast to be a part of your day. There's nothing you need to take from this. Just let it be with you. If you'd like to explore more, you can find more about Lara at laradoughty.com or raisedbyfire.com, and follow Lara on Instagram at the Lara Doughty. The light is on. Our door stays open.